God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He that believeth on him is not condemned, but he that believeth not is condemned already, because he hath not believed in the name of the only begotten Son. This is verbatim, well, now I wouldn't say verbatim, but this is a direct correlation with John 20, I believe, when he's having a conversation with Thomas, because he goes on in about verse 28 or 29 to say, uh, blessed are they that believe and that have not seen. He doesn't say that have not seen me. So we just gonna say that he's not talking himself. He's not talking about himself because he didn't say me.
Well, the big difference is, to begin with, that verse actually begins with a statement saying the logia of Jesus, or Jesus saying. Jesus replied, saying something of that sort is in that text.
That's what I'm saying. So we
That's
saying
not
three
in verse
verses up
16.
from verse 16 is saying
Yeah,
Christ is speaking, saying you are clearly separating it, or you have a clear understanding of there being a separation when there is none written.
yeah, it doesn't seem like it's an address to
So when
the
you say it
character he's
doesn't
in
seem
dialogue
like,
with, namely
I'm
Nicodemus.
I respect that, Courtney, but that's your third time saying it doesn't seem like, which is why the second time you said it, I asked, so is that subjective in an understanding? When you say it seems like, I respect it 1,000%, but we gotta speak the facts that it is what it is. It's
Okay.
not written clearly that there's a separation between 15 and 16, nor 14 and 13, when Christ is clearly talking in 12 and 13. So if Christ is
I'm not
clearly
denying him
talking,
changing up until verse 15. I said verse 16 seems to be the narrator changing. There's also literary markers in the manuscripts where there's essentially paragraph breaks in some manuscripts at that particular point. There are literary markers in some manuscripts where there's not a page break, but like a new stanza. Why is there a new stanza if it's the same conversation, according to earlier readers and copies?
um,
A lot of these things have to be explained. So
right. So are you familiar that titles were inserted? Like there weren't titles, stanzas, paragraphs, there weren't any of those in the original text. You're familiar with that,
actually,
right?
because I deal with textual criticism, sir, that is a huge misstatement. There's a lot of stuff in the
Hold,
oldest
hold,
manuscripts
brother,
that
I ain't,
actually
hold on.
demonstrate
Pay
contrary to
close
that
attention to what
opinion.
I'm saying. I ain't acting like the King James version is the first. That's not what I
I'm
said.
glad I'm talking about manuscripts. King
So
James is
hold
not.
on, brother. Listen to what I'm saying, because I know for a fact what I said isn't inaccurate. So that's why I'm trying to bring clarity so you can understand what I'm saying.
I
The
know for a fact it
original.
is inaccurate.
Hold on, brother.
Yeah.
Hold
Hold on.
one second. The original text have no indentions. Zero. They don't have verses. They don't have chapters. All
I
they
didn't say
are
verses in
books.
chapter division. Um, I didn't say verse and chapter division. I'm glad you just missed what I said in order to argue something else.
No, it wasn't a missing of what you said. I'm the one who made an original statement, and you told me my statement was false. So for you to say I missed something that you said means that you think that there's some confusion, which means that it would have came with your understanding of my statement. So with the original text not having breakaways, not having chapters and verses, titles were inserted as those were inserted. Are
No,
you familiar with that?
that is incorrect.
Okay. So
The
so
only
read.
titles that are have ever been part of the document tradition are the titles at the beginning and the end, also known as the prescript and postscript of each document. They are extant in the earliest
Oh, wait.
collections, such as
How?
P46.
Wait, hold on, Court. That's not fair. I just asked you, were titles inserted with
I
them?
keep telling you, I'm sorry, sir, you're not informed about the documents. I'm telling you about the manuscripts.
But you just said they
P66,
were added.
you're not listening.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay, so did you say titles were added at any point in time just now? You never said that.
I said chapter and verse divisions are at later editions. I said there were titles at the beginning and the ending of each document, namely the gospel.
So when did that
Kata
come?
Johannes,
So
according
okay.
Kata Evangelion Johannes. That's what's in the beginning before you get to John 1. At the end of Luke, in the manuscript traditions, Luke ends, and then you find Kata Evangelion Lucan. And then the very next line, separated, a little page break sometimes, a little breakaway, demonstrating again, contrary to your opinion, that there is actual breakaways, literary styles, and features in the documents that you're misrepresenting.
Okay, so just to inform you that I'm fully aware of what you're talking about. What you're talking about is uh is totally different from what I'm talking about, because you're more so talking about a separation of books.
I'm
And
talking about a separation, not just of titles
hold on, brother.
between books, but also paragraph structures.
Okay, so once
As
again,
I stated
if
earlier,
you would have
John
let
8:1 prologue probably initially was not ended, according to the earliest readers, at verse 18. Modern scholars think the prologue of the Gospel of John end at verse 18. The manuscripts have different information suggesting a new stanza being popping into the document at later verses, in the 20s. John 1 verse in the 20s. They begin to pop in new stanzas in the narrative, suggesting that the initial prologue was probably not read and concluded with the bookends of verse 18, as we have in our modern construction of.
so once again, you said when the book ends, I'm 100% aware of the understanding of the separation of books by the name
I'm
of the
not
prophet.
okay.
And
Verse
what
118 is not
hold
the end of
on,
the
hold
Gospel
on.
of John.
Come on now. You keep cutting my wheels. And I'm purposely letting you rock. I know how to talk over niggas too. I promise you. I'm gonna let you rock, and I'm gonna get in, and I'm gonna get right back out. I'm familiar with what you're saying about anything in between books. I need you to specifically expound on your understanding of the original
New
text.
stanzas in the same text being formed are extant. Different stanza structures are extant in the manuscripts than what you have in your modern critical edition. The best one, that modern critical edition, that actually attempts to maintain the stanza selections of the ancient manuscripts is the Tyndale House, not the Nestle Aland Greek text. The Tyndale House even attempts to maintain the literary book compilational structure, which is different once you get into the Pauline books in order, not in number, but only in order, because the manuscripts preserved a different order than how we currently preserve our Pauline corpus.
So long story short,
So there's
you know that titles weren't
I'm
inserted
not
in
talking
between
titles.
paragraphs.
I'm not talking titles. John chapter 1 verse 18 is
I
not the
I
ending of the
understand that.
okay. And then pay
All right, so
attention. What I'm not talking about is
which
titles.
context are we talking about?
Stanza introductions, new stanzas being in the manuscripts, demonstrating literary features that you say ain't there, which are there in the ancient manuscripts.
Okay, so I understand your position. So once again, we're talking about John 3, and we're talking about a breakaway. And do you know how many stanzas were on per page? Because
It depends on the manuscript
I
you're
do.
looking at,
You see what
sir.
I'm saying? So when you want to talk about linguistics, I'm familiar with
Well, we're not
exactly what
talking
you're talking about.
linguistics at all. We're talking physical documents.
Brother, okay, linguistics goes into literature. Because
Oh,
you were writing in a certain language is because you wrote a certain amount of stanzas and a certain amount of words on one page. So because you were writing a certain amount of words or a certain amount of stanzas on one page, is according to why you would break away in certain points. Because if I was getting ready to start a continuation, but it was about to break too fast, then I would go ahead and stop it right here, and I would start so the part that I want to flow will flow accordingly. Because it was only about maybe 20 or 25 lines or something like that, because it was two columns on each page. So I'm familiar, I'm 100% familiar with what you're talking about. I may not know all the terminology word for word, but I promise I'm familiar with what you're talking about.
We have early
So,
manuscripts. We have some of the best manuscripts actually have 4 column pages. What are you talking about? The great unsealed text, like Codex Sinaiticus Vaticanus, Sinaiticus has 4 column pages.
do you know
What do you think I'm articulating to you? What I know.
right, do you know what Shemtov is? Are you familiar with Shemtov?
Yes, sir. But are you familiar with Shinto?
No, I'm not. I'm just asking you about him. So, are you familiar
Okay.
with his style of writing and why he rewrote Matthew the way that he did?
Yes. He claimed to have found a document that nobody has ever looked at and translated it from Hebrew, transcribed it from Hebrew in his day. Nobody has ever seen the manuscript he allegedly transcribed. The evidence suggests what he did was find a Texas Receptus edition and he altered a few portions by means of translating it in Hebrew.
Right. So, in other words, um, there were times where, to get the proper understanding, and I still believe that even to this day, it needed to come from the proper people in a proper order. So when I say proper people in a proper order, I ain't just talking on some Israelite tribe of Judah shit. I'm not always being a Norbert ass nigga. What I'm saying is, for something to be relayed correctly, sometimes it had to be, or received correctly, sometimes it had to be relayed correctly. So with uh, a correct relay from Shem Tov, somebody with a Hebraic understanding could have understood the book of Matthew way better. So when you talk about Kodak, Sinaiticus, and things like that, these are things that are more so
What you call
respected
original language
in a
text.
hold on, are more so respected in a rabbinic traditional aspect. You see what I'm saying?
No, they're what you call the original language document.
Yeah,
What Shinto did is
I
propose a
understand that.
Hebrew original for Matthew
I understand that, but I'm
and
talking about,
translate Greek and Latin into Hebrew.
right, but I'm talking about style. So when I'm referring to a style, what I'm saying is the understanding that you have of how certain things were breaking away. I understand that. So when we talk about why something was broken away, let's not get away from that topic. So what I'm saying is, if we know something was broken away from a running out of room to continue a flowing of context, then we have to understand that that wouldn't have been nowhere near a problem in the time uh, of the book of John in the third chapter, because we talking about literally the 15th and 16th line. So that's the point that I'm getting at, and the point that I've been trying to get at. So when we talk about that early in the chapter, when chapters were also broken away by stanzas as well, if once it got to that point, because like I say, I have the understanding that uh, the literature styles were evolving for sure, because there wasn't many breakaways in old Hebrew text, and there's fragments to prove it. So
These
when you
are not
talk about,
originally Hebraic documents.
you
They
said
may be
what?
Jewish documents, but they were not originally written in Hebrew.
What I, you missing what I'm saying? What I'm saying is, any of a ancient document. What I'm saying, when you talk about ancient, I'm talking about things before we got on our put our hands on shit. and start translating it. That's what I'm saying. So I'm talking about things that predate the 15 and 1600s, fragments from those times. So
Okay,
when you
well
see
then let's
fragments
talk about
and tablets
manuscripts.
from
'Cause
those
I can
times,
pull up manuscripts, show you what they read like, show you their literary structure, show you the stanza divisions, show you how they actually wrote the documents, and you're just going to say you know what I'm talking about, while at the same time never addressing the fact of the documents. You want to come into the modern era in the 17th
I'm
century,
saying
18th,
what
19th century, and talk about Shem
no.
somebody who we
No,
have no
okay, so
evidence of actually having an
you missed
document
everything
for his
I said.
composition.
You missed everything I said because I brought up Shem Tov for a style of writing. You just
No,
totally
sir. I'm
neglected that.
actually
So
addressing everything you said.
right, but you're neglecting why I brought it up, and that was the more important part. Not that I brought up Shem Tov, because I give a fuck about something like that. So I'm more so speaking to the fact. Let's get right back direct to the topic. Where are you showing a respective break between the 14th and
Stanza.
15th or 15th and 16th line that you can show me in a document? Since you can show me so many things in a document, show me an ancient document where the Hebrew text breaks up in between John 3 and 14 and 15 or 3:15 and 16.
Yeah, there's no Hebrew
If that's what
ancient
we doing.
document of the text in question. The question you're asking is one of pure hypothetical speculation because the document you're talking about does not exist. There is no ancient extant version, translation, or manuscript of the Gospel of John in Hebrew. The question you're
No,
asking,
not in Hebrew,
especially,
not in Hebrew, not in Hebrew. Salaki, come on now, don't do me like that.
I'm just addressing what you're asking. You literally
I
just
feel you.
mentioned
I feel
Hebrew.
you. I feel you. I feel you. But you know what I mean. You should have known what I meant.
Yeah, you mean like how I already said, P45, and it's the earliest manuscripts of the Gospel of John show different stanza exemplification than what's in our modern day critical editions, namely the Standard Critical Edition or the Ancient Standard Critical Edition, the TR or the Nestle Online. The only modern day critical textual edition that's attempting to maintain the ancient manuscripts versions of stanzas is the House Greek
All
edition.
right, I ain't gonna lie. I'm cool with listening to you, but to God, I got one thing that I'm waiting on, and I'm ready to shut up. So, and it sounds like you might have it. So to shut me up, just pull out the source that you talking about, John 3, and then show me the break in between 14 and 15, so I can shut up.
Oh, a new stanza? No problem. Because this is a major debate amongst translators. It's a philological debate amongst translators and interpreters.
Yeah, and like I told you, I've had this debate before. Not a debate, but I've had this back and forth before this conversation. And my understanding from the KJV was separation from conversation and narration at verse 22, not verse 16, because in the KJV there's a title before verse 16, and that's a position that people have tried to use. And it sounds like you were trying to use the same position, but then you
Yeah,
said respectively, hold on, because I'm
but part of the problem with basing your reading off of the King James Version, and I've already asked this question, we
I
sort
was
of dodged it
I
when I asked it initially,
clarified,
is
brother.
your edition of the King James a red letter edition? Because if it is, you're standing on the basis of interpreters' choices when it comes to the red letters of what Jesus said.
That's not what I said. I ain't say anything about going based off the red letter or anything. This was something you asked, and I told you where I got my respective understanding from. So with the outside of the red letter, like I said, once you told me, after I told you I've had this conversation, and I respectively see written a change from conversation to narration, when in verse 22 it says, after these things, Jesus, which means now the author is talking about what just happened. You said you know of documents that have the break in between 14 and 15 or 15 and 16.
I believe it's at 16. There are some manuscripts that show stanza distinctions at verse 16.
So once again, like I said, that's my understanding of where the King James got its break from if it's in the same spot. Well, I'm not gonna say King James just
It
freestyle that
wouldn't be
shit.
a new
If
break.
you're saying,
If it's red letter King James, it wouldn't be a new break because it's a continuous statement from the previous speaker named Jesus.
you
So
said
the
what?
claim you're making doesn't even make sense based upon how the King James reads, especially red letter editions of the King James. King James red letter, only emphasizing the red letter edition because most people that have a King James in our modern culture, not saying new, but most people have that red letter edition.
Yeah. So
So,
what does that have to do with what I'm saying? Because
yeah,
I'm
the
saying
red
that I
letter
don't use
edition
it.
is okay. The red letter edition does not suggest any type of new stanza at verse 16 because it understands 16 or following as continued statements of initial speakers, which is essentially your point. You think Jesus is continuing his thought until the 20s. John
So
$3.20.
in other words, you're telling me that the red letter King James Bible helps my point.
Oh yes, and it's a
Okay, I don't care
translator.
about that. You can leave that out. I don't
I
care. I
said
told
I
you what I
said
want.
it agrees with your point.
Yeah, I don't care. I still don't care. I'm not the person that's trying to, win points like that. I more so want what I asked for if you have it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
that's why when I mentioned the manuscripts
oh my
and I
bad
say
too.
that
I
there's a
forgot you
new
was at work.
stanza
I
in
ain't
verse
trying to
16,
I don't want you to think I'm playing a game by constantly
I
asking
don't
you
think
for
you're
a source.
playing games. I
And you
understand what you're saying. I'm also addressing what you're saying as succinctly and holistically as I can because we got here by me saying stanzas and other literary features are in the text before you suggested. You said there are no evidences in the manuscript because they're in four columns and this, that, and the
no,
third, and
I
limited space in
specifically
writing.
said original and you started saying older manuscripts.
Yeah, we don't have the originals.
And what I said was right after you said we don't have the originals, I said I'm talking as original as we can grasp, like fragments that were found before the 15 and 1600s when they started to be translated into English. That's
Oh,
what
well,
I said.
these fragments weren't found before then. All of these fragments were found in 1948 and much more recently. The New Testament manuscript explosion is a modern historical
Wait.
event.
So you're not familiar with like the canonization of certain apocryphal books and certain like stuff like that in the
Say that
1500s?
one more time, please.
You're not familiar with the certain canonization of apocryphal books in the 1500s?
Of apocryphal literature?
Yes.
That's irrelevant.
How is that irrelevant when they were
We're not
canonized
talking
and they were
canonization. We're
hold
not
on,
talking when did these books
hold on,
get put into a
hold on.
collection.
You can't say that's irrelevant and let me explain how that's relevant. It's
Uh,
relevant because the apocryphal books were put together, some were put together by fragments. So if they were put together by fragments and they were canonized in the 1500s, and they had to be found before they were canonized.
yeah, well, you don't know, you don't have a good understanding of the history of the biblical documents, canonization, including apocryphal works. The apocryphal works were part of the canons well before the New Testament were being composed. And they were being utilized by the Jews in their circuits. They just did not recognize those documents as scripture, per se. You know that from Josephus, who talks about a set
What
numerical
does that have
value
to do
for
with
the
Ezra?
collections that were used
Right.
in the
I got
synagogue.
you, but what does that have to do with Ezra's not having full uh book chapters and verses and they were still able to fix them together?
Dude, if you really want me to tell you something shocking about Ezra, the Greek version of Ezra is 15% longer than the Hebrew Aramaic form.
And how did that happen?
How does what?
How did that happen?
How does that happen? Because of folklore being included at the end of the text.
Which is what?
The text is the same all the way up until you get to the end. At the end, you find 15% more words in the Greek edition than we do in the Hebrew edition.
Okay.
And yet, it was already part of the Jewish canon.
Okay. So when you say
The, the,
Hebrew
the,
edition, when
the
you say
Christians
Hebrew,
had a canon as early as the second century,
right?
according to the Meritorian fragment.
So
So this
you say
15th
Hebrew
century
edition,
creation
realize there's
of
right.
canon relevant to this discussion again, we're talking about literary
You brought
features
it
and
up. That's what
manuscripts.
you brought it up.
You
So I
did. You
think
brought up
you probably know
canonization.
where I was finna go, which is why
You brought
now
up
you're saying
canonization, sir.
irrelevant. I can understand. So like
You
I
brought
was
up
saying from the
canonization,
jump,
sir.
right? So like I was saying from the jump, there were books in the Apocrypha that were completed that didn't have the completion at hand. You understand that just like I understand that. With that point being said, if you are saying that there's not in more ancient texts than the translations that we're using, I think you know how incorrect that statement could be. Like they're literally still finding artifacts till this day. So for you to try and say there's no literature that we had that was older than the translations, that's or rewrites. I wouldn't even say translation. I would say rewrites. That's tough. And when I say rewrites, I'm talking about Martin Luther, Kodak, Sinaiticus, Shem Tov era. That's what I'm talking about. When an
Rewrite.
abundance of versions,
So
when
everything we can
right.
go back to in antiquity or ancient documents is going to be a rewrite. And you keep asking me about originals.
Not okay. So once again, when I say original, I'm talking about as far back as we can go before the canonizations of the 15 and 1600s.
I'm
Is
sorry,
is
sir.
that
You're
clear this time?
mistaken. P46, for example, is what? What is the manuscript collection of P46? Do you know? It is a New
You
Testament
talking
canon,
about
by
the
the way.
Greek?
I mean, do you know what P46 is? What manuscript, what texts are a part of P46?
Yeah,
Or
you're talking about the quote unquote original Greek New Testament. Is that what you're talking about?
no, we don't have the original documents. I'm talking
Okay,
about the oldest collection of Pauline letters
I gotta
in
watch
one
my
singular
terminology,
volume.
court. My bad, bro. I gotta
You
watch my
know what they
terminology.
call a canonized collection, an authoritative collection of Pauline books before the 15th century?
Mm-hmm.
Bart Ehrman, I don't know, no New Testament scholar, canonization scholar that suggested the Bible was canonized in the 15th century. This is astonishing,
Wait, hold on. When
astonishing.
you say Bible canonized, what are we talking about when we say that?
Whatever you're the one that brought it up, so we're talking about whatever you
Right.
wanted to
So if
talk
you
about,
say, hold on.
and
So
we're
it, hold on,
pivoted
brother.
from
Hold
the
on,
initial
brother.
point
Hold
of
on, brother.
conversation.
Hold on, brother. Because you just said it's in my court now. So if you're telling me that I'm the one who brought up the Bible in the canon, and I'm the one who brought up 1500s, then that means you're the one who's going to have to show me something being called a Bible or a canon before the 1500s.
Codex Sinaiticus. Next question. Oh, I'm sorry, that's 460, right? Before the wind, 15th? Damn. Did you have another question, sir? This is a manuscript you can look up. You can look at the documents in it. You're going to find apocryphal books. Damn, they had apocryphal books in a singular authoritative text.
So do
Patrician
you
in the fifth century, fourth
all right,
century.
I get what you're saying, but for you to say what you just said, that means you don't get what I'm saying. Because when did Codex Sinaiticus start to be called the Sinai Bible? When did that happen?
It never was called the Sinai Bible.
What?
It only began to be called the Sinai Bible very
Hold
recently.
on. Listen to what you just said.
I'm answering your
Hold
question,
on.
sir.
That's not fair, man.
It's
You can't
only
keep
been
doing that,
called the
court.
Sinai
You
Bible
uh,
very recently
court.
by
You
a
can't keep
YouTuber
doing that.
who
That's not fair,
bragged.
bro. You keep
But
doing
I'm
that.
answering very particularly your question. This jargon of the Sinai
I
Bible,
said I said specifically, when did the Codex Sinaiticus Sinaiticus start to become called the Sinai Bible? You said
Yes, I'm
it was
answering that.
never
Are you
called the
willing to
Sinai
listen to
Bible.
the answer?
Hold on, brother. Hold on, brother. I am listening. So I'm gonna repeat it, and then you tell me if I'm lying. You said it never was called the Sinai Bible. It started to be
Until,
called the Sinai
until, I
Bible.
don't know why you cutting me off.
All right, I'll
My
go ahead.
answer is very simple. It's only been called the Sinai Bible since this African American man who took a couple of ancient Near Eastern courses, allegedly at Harvard. We have no idea if he actually got a degree, but he took one ancient Near Eastern course, and since then he's
I
been
get
talking
all
about
that, but
both.
you're making my point, and you don't even realize that.
This is a very modern phrase applied to a document that's never been called such until the last 5 years.
Yes, and that's what I'm telling you. But I just told you to show me it being called that before the 1500s, and you just
It
said
never was
Codex
called the
Sinaiticus.
Sinai Bible, sir.
Codex Sinaiticus.
It never was called the Sinai Bible.
I know. That's what I just told you, and then
Well, I'm
asked you
glad
to
we're in
show me
agreement.
something being called the Bible before that.
Oh, the Bible? Yeah, well, Codex Sinaiticus was a Bible.
Oh my gosh, you
And,
going in
and we
circles,
know
man.
how it functioned because of its multiple hands that went into its composition and the
Uh,
corrections in it.
that ain't gonna work for you. You already shot yourself in the foot when you said it wasn't called a Bible, and then said it didn't start to become called a Bible till the last 5 years. Now you trying to circle all the way back around and say, well, it was a Bible.
Yes, it's not being called a Bible because what the
Okay,
document
I got you,
is
but
a
that ain't what
singular
I asked you.
document with
That ain't what I
multiple
asked you.
texts inside of it.
That's not what
And
I
the
asked you though.
codex,
I told you to show me something being called, specifically being called the Bible or the canon before the 1500s. That's specifically what
okay,
I asked you, and
Meritorian
you just said
fragment,
Codex
the
Sinaiticus.
Meritorian fragment, which is the second century, and otherwise than that,
It's
many
not
scholars date
called
it
the
to the fourth
Bible. You're
century.
not.
I
You're
don't,
not
oh
gonna
my
find me
goodness.
anything called
You
the
said show
Bible.
you
That's what
something
I asked you.
regarding a canon or the Bible. I'm sorry for addressing all the words you say while you like
It's not
emphasizing a
called the
tenth of the
canon.
words
It
you say.
wasn't called the canon.
Then why is this word all over the lips of certain church fathers, such as I don't know, the one who wrote a letter in the fourth century, in the third century, 100 years before Nicaea? Um, Origin. Have you ever heard of Origin?
Origin.
Are you familiar with Origin?
Origin.
Okay, however you pronounce his name, are you familiar with the character I'm speaking about, the historical individual?
I'm not familiar with them.
Okay, well, I would suggest reading Joshua's his book, Homilies on Joshua, chapter 7, section 1,
Yeah,
where he's
damn.
telling the Christians, hold on, where he's telling the Christians, I'm going to pass down to you what is of first importance regarding what you should read. And then he lists, in a very poetic fashion, the canon, the very same canonical documents that we have today in Protestant, in every modern New Testament
And
from
what's this dude's
all
name?
communities.
What's his name?
I'm sorry, his name is Origin.
How you spell it?
Oriegen.
Or,
ORIEGN.
yeah, origin.
O
Origin.
R I G.
Church Father Origin. The document's called Homilies on Joshua 7.1.
And what specific? What was the quote from Origin?
Yeah,
I missed that part.
he's writing an introduction for new believers on what books are part of the faith tradition. And then he begins to poetically articulate the canon in his articulation.
Wait,
The
hold.
only book that's not listed in his articulation is Revelation.
So
But
help me out.
Revelation is understood to be scripture, according to Eusebius's quotes of the same character.
So help me out real quick. You said his document that you're referring to is from when?
I said what? I said that there was 100 years before the Council of Nicaea, there was already a functional canon amongst Christians, and Origin tells you it's books.
No, I said when did he make this document that you're talking
It
about?
wasn't made by anybody. You want me to share Bart Ehrman quote? Bart Ehrman says the canon was not ratified by church council or any man. The Christians' canon was ratified by general consensus. Martyrdom and Lost Christianities, I believe, page 120. I might have the
So,
page wrong, but that's the book. That's the quote.
so I get what you're saying, Court, and like I say, we ain't. Quite frankly, I don't see a point of contention that we have necessarily. I more so see us trying to understand each other, but I still don't see you. Is two things that I asked for. I don't see you giving me any type of understanding of why I'm supposed to understand that there was a break in between verses I guess 14 and 15, but you said that the document that you are familiar with puts the break at 16, and then said the KJV red letter doesn't do that. It actually continues the red letter, which supported my point, and I was waiting on you to support your point. And now I'm asking you to at least show me, to get an understanding of where you coming from, a Bible or a canon being called such before the 1500s, because that's what I referred to when I was talking about the fact that there were things like titles inserted. And you were saying that them being, I guess, inserted before then would somehow help your point. But I'm like I said, I'm more so circled all the way back around, just trying to get to because I've had this debate or this conversation more than once. The any document that you have that I need to challenge, because I'm big on my spiritual discernment, and when I'm reading John 3, I see a clear change in the author's writings, and it goes from conversation to narration from 21 to 22. That's why I ain't said my spiritual discernment. I could
Okay,
be
I see
wrong,
a clear
just
distinction
like
in
anybody else.
audience in verse 16.
You
Now,
said what?
because it's no longer a personal address to the participant that Jesus is communicating with, namely Nicodemus, it's more or less a general statement given to the reader, the initial audience or the initial readers of the document.
Yeah, the light. Yeah, I thought you said
Like you keep saying I haven't addressed this or I don't address that, and this is a very clear literary distinction in the narrative's content. Jesus is no longer you must, you will be no longer you, which is what's going on in direct communication with Nicodemus. These
that's
direct
not what's
personal
going on.
pronouns ain't there
You
no
don't
more.
remember
It's
me
a
reading.
plural.
You don't remember me reading.
You must be born again or born from above. So you telling me I gotta be go back and re-enter my mother's womb? Aren't you a Pharisee, someone trained in the law? And then 16. What did 16 say? For God so loved the world, he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. This doesn't seem to be all this direct.
How that Court, don't do that, man. You literally just went from this man asking a rhetorical question to you saying it went from his rhetorical question to the conversation being over.
Yeah.
Versus him asking a rhetorical question and doing what everybody does when they ask a rhetorical question and answering it. That's
Um,
literally what he did. He asked a rhetorical question, answered it, and then that was the end of the conversation, because Nicodemus should have understood what was being said. And then John clearly says in verse 22, after these things, you can say, after these things came. That's what the scriptures say. What does after these things came mean to you, Immanuel? It means clearly after these things were done or after these things were said. Jesus and his disciples into the land of Judea, and there he tarried with them and baptized. This is a clear description of what was just happening from the author. This is clearly not a conversation. This is clearly narration. You see what I'm saying? That's all I'm
I
saying.
hear
That
you, but I
this is
disagree
clear
with you.
narration.
This is nowhere at our point of disagreement, but I hear you. I don't agree with you.
Hmm.
I think it's quite clear in the narrative, especially throughout the rest of the text and other places where it goes from conversation to addressing the reader. It reflects more or less that type of situation. But I gotta go. I gotta finish doing what I gotta do up here at work. I should be done in the next 20 minutes to continue this conversation. So if y'all keep talking, just wait for like another 20, 30 minutes. I'll be back.
Hey, it's 3:30 for me, man. But I can't say I'm gonna be gone fast. I don't know what's gonna happen. I might get a boost of energy or something. But peace
You
and
will.
blessings,
You
bro.
got the ladies on the phone. They'll help you out. All right, I'll
Peace,
talk to y'all later. I'll
peace
be
and
right back.
blessings, brother. Yeah, it's always cool chopping it, especially with a Christian.
I ain't got no Christians in the tournament. I just thought about that.
Said what, A1?
So I ain't got no Christians in the tournament. I just thought about that.
Oh, Courtney not in the tournament.
No, he ain't in the tournament.
Hit me
I
in the
was gonna
tournament.
say something. Oh yeah.
He me, hold on, he me a Christian.
He the only Christian in the tournament. I'm
Uh,
trying to share my screen. This shit is not working.
oh yeah, you said Slim ain't in the tournament.
Nope, Slim ain't in this. He'll probably get
Oh,
in.
hold on, nigga. You got 16 people and one Christian. Who is everybody? Is everybody Hebrew Israelites?
It's like 3 or 4 Hebrews. It's Naga. What is 2 Nagas in there? With Silky D a Berber. I got like 2
You
or 3
said Silky
Amish.
is a Berber.
Yeah, I got him down as a Berber. I don't know what he is other than that. Um, Chef D
I thought he
Amish,
was
Sunny
more. I thought
Amish.
I heard him
Yeah, that
doing.
is a more though, but Berber more.
Oh, okay. I thought
So
I
same
don't. I
thing.
don't be knowing
I should have put more
like
next
the
to it
lady
though.
earlier. The young lady earlier was like
Like seriously, are you dumb?
Man, I don't know what's going on, but I see a lot of these fuck niggas popping they shit, thinking that niggas, you know, they tough, they cold with this shit, and it's absurd. I find that disrespectful.
Like seriously, are you dumb?
Talking records, Betty ain't gon' try. Ain't no coming back, one step and it's goodbye. He can sweet, we let it fly. Now it's soul, touch the sky. Another dumb waiter, another dumb way to die. They should warn them, they don't make it out alive. We don't talk, we just carve it in the side. Left the mark, now his name in the fire written high. Another dumb waiter, another dumb way to die. He ain't peeped the preachers context, now he a highlight in the text. Tried to start but got reset, soon as he got checked. Guess he yesterday's news, now he online talking less. Boy was gassing up the smoke, now he choking on the stress. True down, busted on his own sword, put that fraud to rest. Thought he was solid but cracked under heat. Now he's compressed. We the real highlight. Leave our mark with the blade. Swing sharp, every text plain. No need for a shame. Bring heads back to the camp. Left the fire engraved. And no echoes in the form of your name. Check the terrain. Biggest the game. Watch his last words go live. Step wrong, now he trending. Another dumb way to die. Talking records, Betty ain't gon' try. Ain't no coming back, one step and it's goodbye. He can sweet, we let it fly. Now it's soul, touch the sky. Another dumb waiter, another dumb way to die. They should warn them, they don't make it out alive. We don't talk, we just carve it in the side. Left the mark, now his name in the fire written high. Another dumb waiter, another dumb way to die.
I like to die, why the fuck try it? Keep playing with me, I'ma show you why I'm untouched. Are you dumb? Are you stupid? Or you must be bored? Whole time, suicide, barbarian. So drink that orange juice, you need it trying to stick to me. You know you a pussy nigga, slice your head off your body. Narratives and propaganda's not the way to fight, little bitch. The top is where you wanna be, but this is where we fucking live. When shot is all you need, the ball's the only thing reloaded. Got 49 in the drums, you saw your homie, now he folded. It's a bunch of headless horsemen walking dead up in these streets. I'ma call you Moses, write your death in your defeat. You niggas dumb.
Talking records, Betty ain't gon' try. Ain't no coming back, one step and it's goodbye. You can sweet, we let it fly. Now it's soul, touch the sky. Another dumb waiter, another dumb way to die. They should warn them they don't make it out alive. We don't talk, we just carve it in the side. Left the mark, now his name in the fire written high. Another dumb way to, another dumb way to die.
Especially when these fuck niggas be trying to talk to us barbarians and shit, stepping to us, thinking they gon' fucking come out alive and shit. Like, nigga, you don't understand, nigga, that we all fucking savages, nigga. Like, do you wanna die or something? Like, you niggas disgust me. Shame you niggas.